with Louise Simeone, who's the Global Head of Business Development for Global Trade and Receivable Finances for HSBC. Now, Louise, tell us what the benefits are of conducting trade in renminbi, of conducting your Chinese trade in renminbi.
Well, basically, China is a very important market for every single exporter and importer around the world. Today, more than 50 countries have China as the top 3 priority market in terms of counterpart. So to develop a trade in renminbi facilitates to do more business. So you can sell more, accessing more, a large number of importers in China. You can also buy more from China because you can minimize the risks that the Chinese may have to do international trade with you.
Okay, so using obviously the Chinese national currency will facilitate your trade, it will make it easier to do it. But what about the practical issues? Because obviously everybody knew how to trade in dollars, very simple. But with doing it in renminbi, don't you have issues with opening bank accounts and how you're going to get your payments and so forth?
Actually, not anymore. To do transactions in renminbi is relatively simple. You can do this, open a no resident bank account in China mainland if it's the case. You can open a bank account in one of the renminbi offshore centers like in Hong Kong, Singapore, or even London. Or otherwise, you can also use FX transaction with an international bank that will offer this support to you. The key element to operate the renminbi is to facilitate the operational model for the Chinese counterparts. So how you can minimize the implications of the Chinese to do international trade with your company. So they can avoid a mismatch in terms of currency. You also can identify benefits in terms of a cost of funding that is available in markets like North America and Europe. And then you can transform this benefit and repass this benefit to the Chinese counterparts in China mainland. So there are several elements that you can use, you can leverage. Not necessarily need to open a bank account. Can help you, can help your company in terms of cash management, in terms of hedging, in terms of derivatives, in terms of investments. But at the end of the day, the purpose to open, to operate a renminbi is to sell and buy more with the Chinese counterparts.
Okay, now this is the interesting aspect, isn't it? We always know about the Chinese export machine, but obviously trade is two ways, and China's beginning to import more. Can it be as useful for Chinese importers as it is for Chinese exporters?
Yes, indeed. Indeed, because the Chinese importers, they have their cost structure in local currency. So if they can buy and sell more in local currency, domestically or internationally, make their life easy. We have some statistics, recent surveys that we promote, that the Chinese counterparts, they are able to give us some benefits, financial benefits, 3, 5, up to 90% discounts, or change the terms and conditions of the commercial flow if the counterpart located overseas can operate in renminbi. So at the end of the day, every single company that wants to sell more or even buy more from China, if they can use renminbi, not to replace the current exposure that they are doing, to do an additional amount, if they can use renminbi, this will be a very good demonstration in terms of to build a long-term relationship with the Chinese counterpart. Definitely, you can get some benefits for the Chinese mainland.
Okay, so this is good news, obviously. We all know how important it is for building relationships in China. Now you're telling me it's cheaper as well.
Yeah.
Historically, a huge amount of the Chinese exports has been going to the US and Europe. But increasingly, we're seeing the development of what's being called South-South trade. You're from Brazil. There's a lot of trade now being done between Brazil and China. Does using the renminbi have as many benefits for South-South trade as it does for traditional US-Europe trade?
I think so, fair enough. For instance, today 10% of the China trade flows is denominated in renminbi, is settled in renminbi. This is 5 times bigger than 2 years ago. We expect, according to the survey that we promote, that by 2015, 1/3 of the China trade flow will be denominated in renminbi. However, 50%, half of that, will be with emerging markets. So definitely the relationship between China with the other emerging markets like Latin America, Asia, Southeast Asia, even Europe is progressing very well. So definitely you can see more and more flows between emerging markets with China.
Okay, now finally, we know since the financial crisis that everybody involved in business is much more concerned about risk than they used to be. So doing trade this way in the renminbi, is that a way of reducing your risk?
I think that we should take in consideration that the risk is not You cannot minimize all the risks that you have doing international trade. I'm not saying that you need to move from your current currency, like say dollars, euro, or pounds, to RMB. You should take in consideration that RMB is a very important trade currency now. I think that is consolidated this stage as internationalization of the RMB process. I think that you have a mechanism in the international market, not only in China, but out of China, again, in Hong Kong, Singapore, Dubai, London, even in New York, to develop a hedge, to develop some protections. This can help the entire cash management of multinationals that operate in China or operate with a Chinese counterpart. Definitely, it's a currency that you need to take in consideration going forward. You cannot simply neglect. You need to put a RMB in your trade flows.
Okay, Luis, thank you very much for explaining how you can use renminbi for a trade currency. Now let's talk about how you can use renminbi as an investment currency.